Good evening. Welcome to the screening of The People vs. Agent Orange, the first event in the Legacies of the Vietnam War Conference. I am Ling Hang Thing Nguyen. I'm the Dorothy Borg Associate Professor in the History of the United States and East Asia, Director of the Weatherhead East Asian Institute, and co-founder of Vietnamese Studies here at Columbia University. Before we begin, I would like to thank our sponsors that made this event possible. They include Technology, Media, and Communications, as well as the Saltzman Institute for War and Peace, both at the School for International Public Affairs, the New York Southeast Asian Network, and the Journalism Schools. So thank you to our co-sponsors for making this event possible. I'd also like to thank my co-organizers of the conference. They include Professor Tony Bui, there, and my co-organizer, Professor Minh Hoang, who I'm going to take a few seconds and introduce him. So Professor Minh Hoang is a faculty member in History and Vietnam Studies at Fulbright University, Vietnam. He is here with us today, though, as adjunct professor in history and the visiting research associate scholar at the Weatherhead East Asian Institute here at Columbia. Professor Vu is a diplomatic historian of 20th century Vietnam and the Asia Pacific, studying national and regional security, economics, interests, and identity formation, as well as genocide. He is currently working on his book manuscript on the Third Indochina War as a key formative event of the present-day regional order in Southeast Asia, most notably by elevating the protection of human rights. At Columbia, Professor Hoang offers courses on modern Southeast Asia and the history of Asian communism. Both are extremely popular courses. He's also working with Columbia Professor John Phan, who is my co-founder of Vietnamese Studies, on a loose-funded digital humanities project called Digitizing Vietnam. Now, when he's not doing all this, he should be taking care of his newborn baby. So I'll hand it over to you, Hoang.
Thank you so much, Yuan Hang. She's really the best boss I could ever ask for, and you guys are really at the Weatherhead East Asian Institute. Ratna, Julie, Susie, Ariana, Lynn, Wilson, and so many more people have really put in a lot of effort. You guys are really in for a big treat, not just today, but also tomorrow. We have a big conference program that's coming up. I think we probably also want to thank our really good friend and benefactor of Columbia Vietnam Studies, Peter Mack, who's with the Mack Family Foundation has been funding a lot of our wonderful activities here. So we are incredibly fortunate today to have been able to bring together you guys, but also some amazing speakers who will be talking with you after the film. So the film will show, the way the schedule works is the film will show at precisely 5:10 until 6:30, at which time I was told that there will be refreshments at the back, so there's a bit of incentive for you guys to stay. There'll be a 5-minute intermission for you to go to the restroom, grab your snacks. I'm sure you, if you need to leave early, I understand, but I'm sure after watching the film you'd want to stay back and you'd want to listen to our speakers. Just a quick note that the session, and I'll remind you, will be recorded, and will be put free of charge on our YouTube page of the Weatherhead East Asian Institute. I strongly encourage you to check it out because it has all of our past talks as well. We do so many talks each semester, and it's such a lively program. So I just want to take the time now to introduce some of the people who will be here at the end. More incentive for you to stay. Of course, it is the director of the film, Adelson, who's at the back there. Alan, would you like to? His film and television credits include One Survivor Remembers, include production coordinator, Best Short Documentary Oscar, 3 Emmy Awards. Kate Taverna, our producer, is also back there. Carol Van Strum, one of the activists, you will see her in the film later. She's a writer, bookseller, ruthless editor, comic book reviewer, Asian parent, and seasoned troublemaker. I'll introduce them in greater detail later. I just want to give you a quick preview. And Madame Tran To Nga, who is on her way here, she's a very, very famous activist who's been working to demand justice and compensation to Vietnamese victims in the French court. And we have a surprise visitor who's at the last moment wanted to join us, Jonathan Moore, the attorney at law of Beldock, Levine and Hoffman LLP. He is the lawyer who's responsible for arguing the Vietnamese case before the US court in the 2000s. And he's been helping He's also the lawyer who exonerated the Central Park 5, if you guys know. So we'll say a lot more about them. I'll say a little bit about the film. The film will really speak for itself, but just to say a few things. First of all, it was put together really on a shoestring budget, with really dedicated people, and yet it also won some amazing prizes, even though it was launched during COVID. So this is actually what you're about to see is sort of the first proper screening of it for the public in New York City. Is that right?
Yes, it is, thank you.
Yeah, because at the time it came out in theaters, but theaters, if you remember during COVID, it was like they send you a link and you watch it at home. So it's been out for about 3 years, but I do think it's great to be able to do the film justice and show it on the big screen, and thank you so much for coming out to support. It's also won several prizes. I won't name all of them, but one in particular that I'll say is the Eugene Environmental 2020 Jury Award in the Eugene Environmental Film Festival Prize. It also won the 2021 Organization of American Historians Prize, Eric Barnell Prize. They only give one documentary prize each year. So it's got entertainment, activists, and also academic value as well. So anyway, without further ado, I need to go pick up Madame Nga at the gate. She's arrived, so perfect time. Yeah, please let it roll. Please, one more time, give it up for these amazing panelists we have here. So for those of you who came in late, I'll just say things very briefly about myself. So my name is Hoang and I'm a postdoctoral scholar here. I was a researcher. I was the lowliest on this film, a little researcher when I was a graduate student. I was connected actually by Columbia University. At the time, Lucy Ha was and she's now working for Reuters in London, but she was a journalism student here, graduated in 2017, and she had she'd been working with an alumnus of Columbia Journalism School, Alan Adelson, graduated in, he doesn't want me to tell you, 1967. But he was a troublemaker here, against the Vietnam War back in his own days. And I also want to, yes, and so this is so fitting that this event is being held by Columbia because in many ways it was made in Columbia, right? Many of these education and some of these ideas were here. And the other person I want to recognize in the audience today is Susan Swift, who's also in the film. I forgot to pick this up. And Susan has also been, such an amazing supporter, and actually has helped us finance this talk today with her own money. So it's just incredible. I'm really, really grateful. before we begin, I'm going to pass the mic quickly to Alan, but just very briefly, please keep your questions to the point and brief. We only have an hour, and to the panelists as well to answer the questions quite briefly. Okay, so Alan, up to you.
Thanks, Hoang. I wanted to explain to you the rather astonishing experience that Kate and I are having tonight, because there's an astonishing meeting going on before our eyes. Madame Tran and Carol Van Strum have never met one another before tonight. I consider them film sisters. They have been writing to one another and to Kate and I, expressing their admiration for one another and their desire to finally meet. And tonight is the night when it's happening. I am thankful to Hoang for pointing out that Susan Swift has made that possible. I want you to know that Madame Tran flew here from Paris.
Today.
Has only just arrived. We used to say hot off the presses. And for Carol Van Strum, she has completed a 3-day train ride from Oregon to... I stand corrected. You can explain to me how. So they have both really committed an enormous amount of energy and time and will to seeing you tonight and to meeting one another, and we're really excited about it.
Okay, so guys, I know you must have many questions. Just keep them coming, please. Yes, in the front here.
It's a two-part question for Jonathan and Madame Tran. What was the legal basis upon which your efforts here in the U.S. ended? And if Madame Tran can update us on what's happening in Paris.
That's a good question. Thank you for the question. And thank you for inviting me to appear on this panel with these two wonderful women who are just incredible role models for everybody. We brought our lawsuit in 2004. Is after the original group of veterans had filed their lawsuit, settled it. But we were representing not the people who were incidentally exposed, but the people for whom exposure was intended, in the sense that Vietnamese, they lived in Vietnam, and they were the intended targets of this 10-year campaign of destruction, genocide, really. And as it said in the movie, there were 20 million gallons of herbicide that was spread, mostly over Central and South Vietnam, because that's where the spraying occurred. That's where the fight was really being waged during the war. And so we filed our lawsuit in 2004 under a statute called the Alien Tort Claims Act, which was the very first law that was passed by the Congress in 1789. It allows residents of foreign countries to sue U.S. citizens, U.S. corporations for wrongdoing. And there had been a series of cases, mostly in New York and the Second Circuit, that had expanded that right. Unfortunately, just after we filed, there was a decision by the Supreme Court, a case called Sosa, that limited the extent to which we could recover. And as much as we tried to fit our case under the limited exception. We were unsuccessful. We litigated this all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, and ultimately the Supreme Court decided to affirm the judgment of the lower courts. That we had an extraordinary argument in New York on the appeal in the Second Circuit, which lasted all day, and there were victims from Vietnam who came to that argument, and on a moral level, and what we believed on a legal level, we thought we had a very strong case because we thought we had evidence, and the film alludes to some of the evidence of direct knowledge by the chemical companies that they were producing a product that they knew contained a poison. Dioxin is a poison. It's one of the most poisonous chemicals ever invented by our human species, and they knew it. They knew it back in well before they started using this in Agent Orange. And what exacerbated its deadly effect was that after it began being used in 1963 or 1961, whatever, the government just kept pushing for more and more and more of these chemicals, to the point where they under the National Defense Act, essentially nationalized all the chemical companies so that they were all producing nothing but these herbicides. Agent Orange was the most prevalent of them, but there were others as well. And in order to feed that appetite by the U.S. government, because this worked. I mean, even if you go to Vietnam today, and you go to the Central Highlands and you look at the hills, they're still denuded. They still have not grown back in a natural way. So these chemicals worked in terms of destroying the land, and the effect of all of this was that millions of people were exposed to, on a daily basis, on a year, for years, to these toxic chemicals. And it's estimated that even today, there are millions, at least 3 million Vietnamese who still suffer the effects of their prior generations' exposure to Agent Orange, because it gets passed from generation to generation. So we were unsuccessful. We were successful in bringing the issue back in front of the American public in a way by raising it as an issue for people to deal with. But legally, we were unsuccessful. And you saw the judge in the case, Jack Weinstein. The reason why he decided against our claims was that he accepted the government's, not the government, he accepted the chemical company's argument that whatever poison happened was just collateral, was not intended. And in the face of massive evidence, of course, that we thought we had, that proved otherwise. Unfortunately, we were never able to overcome that argument. I am almost certain that that's the same argument that they're making now, these same chemical companies, with the same lawyers who represented them in our case, are making in the French courts. So I could talk for a long time about the case. But let me tell you that we have never stopped advocating for the victims of this horrible poisoning, this horrible genocide, this horrible war crime in Vietnam. I work with an organization called the Vietnam Agent Orange Relief and Responsibility Campaign that has sponsored a bill every year in Congress, with Barbara Lee from California being the sponsor, who has, using that bill as a springboard to talk about the issue. We've also been successful in getting various Congress people and senators, particularly Pat Leahy from New Hampshire, Vermont, who has earmarked millions of dollars for cleanup efforts at what are known as hot spots in Vietnam, where Agent Orange was stored or kept or contaminated into the water. So I can give you afterwards if people want to get the information for contacting our campaign. I'm happy to do that. Just so that you know that we have not given up this fight.
Okay, so Madam Nga will address in Vietnamese, and then I'll translate. Yeah.
Cô đứng này.
Dạ, trước tiên thì xin cảm ơn sự có mặt của tất cả quý vị ngồi đây.
Yeah, it's not to project, it's just to record.
Dạ. Cái phim mà các bạn vừa xem đó thì Ala và chị Kat đã làm cách đây, nghĩa là ngay khi bắt đầu vào cái vụ kiện. Đây là cái phim đầu tiên làm trong vòng 6-7 năm. Dạ, và lúc đó, lúc chúng tôi mới gặp nhau thì tôi có nói là cái vụ kiện này khi tôi lao vào để mà làm là cái cuộc chiến đấu cuối cùng của tôi. Khi ấy tôi đã 70 tuổi và bây giờ tôi 82 rồi.
So at first, I really want to thank you all for attending today. When Alan and Kate first met me to start this film, this was a 6 to 7 year filmmaking process, and I was just starting my case. And I knew at that time, and I stated that this would be my last fight. I was 70 then, I'm 82 now.
Trước khi nói kỹ hơn về vụ kiện đó, thì cho phép tôi được cảm ơn Alan Kate, cảm ơn luật sư Jonathan Moore là cái người đã đem cái cuộc đời của mình để ủng hộ cho nạn nhân da cam Việt Nam. Và sau này khi tôi vào kiện đó thì Jonathan cũng đã giúp cho luật sư của tôi ở bên Pháp rất là nhiều và sẽ còn giúp nữa, là vì là luật sư của tôi cũng đang rất muốn đi qua để gặp Jonathan trước khi tòa nó xử cái phiên phúc thẩm.
Okay, so first of all, I really want to thank Alan and also especially Jonathan Moore, who's really dedicated his whole life to helping push for this case. And he's been helping my lawyer in France a lot. And before my case, my appeal is going to be decided, which is May 7th. They will meet again, either in Paris or New York.
Và cho tôi được tỏ lòng kính phục và yêu thương. Chị là cái người phụ nữ chịu rất nhiều cái không may, nhưng mà lại là rất là dũng cảm và kiên trì trong cái cuộc đấu tranh giành chính nghĩa.
And I want to express also my adoration and love to Carol, who's had to face many unfortunate events, but she's always been very patient and courageous to overcome everything.
Bây giờ về vụ kiện thì xin nói rõ như thế này. Jonathan, ông biết rồi, nhưng mà có nghĩa là nạn nhân da cam đã 3 lần ra qua bên này kiện, đều không được. Yeah. Thì cuối cùng chỉ còn có một mình nước Pháp có cái luật là cho phép luật sư của Pháp mở những cái vụ kiện quốc tế để kiện một cái nước khác đã làm hại cho công dân của nước Pháp. Và như vậy đó thì tôi lại là may mắn ở cái chỗ là tôi ở nước Pháp tôi có cái quốc tịch Pháp và cũng có may mắn nữa là tôi là nạn nhân da cam. Em cũng dùng cái chữ may mắn nhé.
Okay, so 3 times the Vietnamese victims have tried in America, and 3 times they've been squashed. And in the end, really, we tried with France because France has a very special law that allows a French lawyer or law firm to open a case against overseas entities that have harmed a French citizen. And it is very fortunate, and here I put fortunate in quotation marks, that I am both a French citizen and have been a victim of Agent Orange when I was in Vietnam.
Vì nạn nhân da cam qua Mỹ không được tòa án xét cho nên không có vụ kiện. Thành ra là cái vụ kiện của Tran To Nga trở thành ra là cái vụ kiện duy nhất của một người kiện những công ty Mỹ đã sản xuất ra chất độc da cam trong cái chiến tranh Việt Nam. Và như vậy đó thì ở Pháp, các luật sư Pháp có nói rằng đây là một cái vụ kiện, thứ nhất là duy nhất vì chỉ có người kiện, và duy nhất là vì rằng đây là lần đầu tiên các công ty sản xuất hóa chất của Mỹ ra hầu tòa. Mang tính lịch sử cũng vì vậy, và đương nhiên là nó mang tính chính trị. Cái việc mà quân đội Mỹ rải chất độc để mà dùng chất độc hóa học để đi vào trong chiến tranh đó, thì cái đó là cả thế giới đều nói rằng đấy là cái tội ác chiến tranh. Nhưng mà trên thế giới này lại cũng có một cái luật bất thành văn là những cái người phạm tội nhưng giàu và mạnh thì hầu như là không bị xử. Và bây giờ đó thì chúng tôi rất muốn làm cho cái luật không thành văn đó bị mất đi qua cuộc đấu tranh của một con người già thật, một mình thật, nhưng mà đều không một mình, là vì càng ngày thì tôi càng mạnh hơn với cái sự giúp đỡ và ủng hộ của mọi người.
So this is really a very unique case against the U.S. companies because of this confluence of events and factors. It's also really the first time that the U.S. companies have made the effort to have actually come before the court for court proceedings, and it's very historic, and it's got a huge political meaning as well. The whole world already knows that the U.S. military's use of chemical warfare in Vietnam is a war crime, and yet there's also an unspoken rule that if you are powerful, if you are rich, you'll never actually have to face the law. And through my individual fight, I want, of this old individual, I want to show people that this is, I want to overturn that rule, that unspoken rule. And every day I get a lot stronger with your support. So thank you.
Khi tôi bắt đầu kiện đó thì chỉ có là đã có hơn 3 triệu nạn nhân da cam ở Việt Nam. Và khi mà ông luật sư William Bourdon hỏi rằng tôi có muốn kiện không, thì lúc đầu tôi nói là không. Là vì rằng đã gần 70 tuổi và cuộc sống của tôi nó cũng lấp đầy được bởi cái tôi đi cùng với đi dùng hết sức mình để giúp cho những cái người bất hạnh. Nhưng mà khi nghe nói rằng nếu tôi không kiện thì là cái tội ác này á, nó sẽ bị chìm, nó sẽ bị lãng quên, thì là và hơn 3 triệu nạn nhân người ta đang chịu cái sự bất công này, thì tôi có nói là vì hơn 3 triệu đó thì tôi lao vào cái cuộc chiến đấu này. Và khi tôi quyết định như thế đó, tôi cũng đã qua gặp Alan và Kate, nhưng mà cũng gặp Jonathan. Và anh Jonathan Moore là cái người mà giúp đỡ chúng tôi rất nhiều, cho hàng trăm kilo tài liệu, những cái tài liệu mật, để cho giúp cho luật sư của tôi có đủ tài liệu, đủ sức để mà mở một cái cuộc chiến đấu mới.
When I started the case, there were 3 million victims in Vietnam already. So when William Bourdain asked me whether I really wanted to bring this case, I first said no, because I was already 70 years old. I felt that I'd done my life's work already. But then I realized that if I did not bring this case, things would just get forgotten, and no responsibility would be, they would never have to face responsibility. So because of that, lost 3 million victims, I finally came to the realization I must bring this case, and that's when I met Alan, I met Kate, and particularly Jonathan, who helped our legal team with hundreds of kilograms of documents that have helped us be able to open this case. So guys, pay attention in class, documentary research, archival research. Hey, it's actually, it's real work.
Gần 7 năm, tòa đại hình Avery đã kéo dài cái vụ kiện bằng 19 cái audience, 19 cái phiên xử, và họ tạo ra rất là nhiều cái khó khăn, rất là vô lý. Kể cả cái chuyện là đề nghị tôi là thôi hòa giải đi, hòa giải để mà coi như là bí mật, để mà ngưng không kiện nữa. Cũng giống như là cựu chiến binh Mỹ cũng đã từng hòa giải và lấy 180 triệu đô la rồi bị khép miệng. Nhưng mà tôi may mắn là luật sư của tôi cũng như tôi nói là không, chúng tôi không vì tiền mà kiện, chúng tôi vì công lý, vì chân lý, vì lẽ phải, vì nạn nhân mà kiện. Và cái điều có thể tòa án sẽ không bao giờ tuyên được là Trần Tố Nga thắng, là vì tòa án chưa chắc gì đã dám nói rằng các công ty Mỹ và chính phủ Mỹ đã làm một cái tội ác là diệt chủng như là Jonathan đã nói. Nhưng mà vấn đề là càng ngày thế giới càng biết cái tội ác về về việc sử dụng hóa chất, làm chiến tranh hóa chất, và để thế giới càng ngày càng biết rằng cho đến ngày hôm nay dioxin vẫn tiếp tục giết con người, vẫn tiếp tục làm hại cho cả cái thiên nhiên. Cái đó mới là cái chính. Và làm sao để cho là nạn nhân của mình bằng cách nào đó người ta được giúp đỡ.
So for 7 years, the court in Avery dragged out this trial with 17 court dates, essentially. They put many stops in our way, many of them very unreasonable, and they tried very hard to get me to take a deal, just like the American veterans had all those years ago and got $180 million. But both myself and my lawyer were determined that we're not in here for the money, we're in here for justice. So we just fight it really basically to the end. The court really doesn't want to admit to this, that American companies have committed this crime of genocide, but now public opinion against chemical warfare is changing, and it's gaining momentum, and people are realizing that dioxin still harms and kills people up until today.
Yeah. Như vậy là cũng phải nói ra con số này để cho là các bạn hình dung ra cái cuộc chiến đấu nó khắc nghiệt đến cỡ nào. Tôi gửi cái đơn kiện gửi cho 26 công ty Mỹ, 26 công ty sản xuất cái chất độc da cam này. Thì đợi 1 năm thì 19 công ty ra hầu tòa. Lần đầu tiên trong lịch sử của thế giới, 19 công ty ra hầu tòa, mỗi công ty thuê 2 luật sư. Có nghĩa là 3 luật sư của tôi mà bảo vệ tôi không hề lấy một đồng tiền nào. Thì họ đang đối diện là 38 luật sư. Chỉ con số không đó thì các bạn hình dung ra.
Yeah, so I initially served notice to 26 US companies, and after 1 year, 19 companies actually came to court, which is quite historic. And each company had brought with them 2 to 3 lawyers. So my 3 lawyers, all working pro bono, up against 38 lawyers from these companies.
Và sau gần 7 năm mà các bạn thấy đó, 5 tháng nó đi tới, có nghĩa là người này càng ngày càng già hơn, và do cái chất độc nó có trong người cho nên bệnh hoạn nó cũng nhiều. Nhưng mà 7 năm để mà tòa án tuyên bố là ngày 21 tháng 1 2021 là lần đầu tiên tòa xử công khai. Luật sư của tôi chỉ được quyền nói trong vòng 90 phút. Nhưng mà cái bên bị đó, người ta hôm đó là có 14 công ty trình ra hầu tòa, họ được quyền nói trong vòng 4 tiếng đồng hồ. 4 tiếng để mà chửi tôi, 4 tiếng để mà nói dối. Tôi lấy một cái này thôi thì các bạn có thể hình dung ra. Trong phim của Alan, các bạn đã thấy cái máy bay nó rải chất độc kiểu nào, nó phun thuốc như thế nào, đúng không? Cái chuyện đó là nó hiển nhiên. Nhưng mà luật sư ra nói rằng bà Nga nói dối. Chúng tôi chỉ có bỏ xuống một cái sản phẩm nó rất là nhỏ đến cái mức độ là không tới được tới cái cây nữa. Thế thì làm sao mà làm hại được con người và làm hại được thiên nhiên? Có nghĩa là một cái sự thật hiển nhiên như thế mà người ta còn đi ngược lại để nói được như vậy. Thế thì và nói là nhưng mà bà ấy ngu đến cái mức độ là sao không bỏ chạy đi mà để ở đó chi và để mà nhận. Và có một cái bạn cũng nói là cái lúc đó không ai muốn ở vào cái vị trí của bà Nga, là vì bà trong vòng 4 tiếng đồng hồ bà phải chịu đựng tất cả những cái ác độc của phía bên kia và bà cứ ngồi im. Nhưng mà cũng phải nói rõ là đến cuối cùng thì bà thẩm phán, bà chánh án chắc là thấy tôi bị tấn công nhiều quá thì có hỏi là bà Trần có muốn nói gì không? Thì tôi chưa kịp nói gì thì luật sư ở phía bên kia của cái công ty Hercule, họ đứng lên họ nói là chúng tôi không muốn nghe bà Nga nữa. Thế thì thiệt ra là lúc đó tôi rất là vui và tôi mừng, tôi nói là thắng rồi. Là vì rằng người ta sợ tôi, sợ cái người phụ nữ một mình đang ngồi tại chỗ như thế, đến cái mức là không đủ can đảm mà chờ xem tôi có nói gì hay không. Thì chỉ có một cái động tác, một cái việc đó thôi thì chắc các bạn hình dung là tất cả những cái 7 năm trải qua như thế nó ác nghiệt thế nào, nhưng mà cái sức mạnh của lẽ phải nó thắng như thế nào.
Okay, so so when this finally was heard on the 21st of January 2021 in the first trial, the court gave me and my lawyers only 90 minutes, but gave the 14 chemical companies 4 hours for their lies and insults of me, and they really insulted me. First they said, you can see how Agent Orange was sprayed, but they said that Nga is a liar. We only sprayed a very small amount of the chemical. It cannot even kill a single tree. So how could it harm the environment and people? And some other lawyers said she's too stupid. Like, why is she just standing there to get sprayed? Why didn't she run? She's so stupid. And so these insults just kept going for 4 hours, and you just have to sit there and listen quietly. And people said that no one really should be subject to that torture. And then in the end, the judge felt so bad for me that she asked if I wanted to say something. But before I could even open my mouth, the the lawyers for the other side said, we don't actually want to hear anything from her. And in that moment, I was extremely happy because I could tell that they were extremely afraid of hearing my voice and hearing what I have to say. So you can see, over the past 7 years, it was just like that, 19 court meetings like that.
Can I ask a question now of
Ada.
Carol? Carol, I wanted to ask you, I don't think people in the audience know about what exemption means. Exemption, what exactly happened after the? Preemption.
Cô nói tiếp ha.
Chắc hết muốn có gì mình trả lời vậy thôi, xong mình
Cho cô nói tiếp cho nó hết đi.
ok, nhưng mà mình nhanh một tí.
Nhanh lên.
Ok.
Dạ, thì bây giờ tôi nói ngắn lại thêm như thế này thôi. Ngày 11 tháng 5 2021 thì tòa án Avery nói rằng họ không có quyền xét cái đơn kiện của tôi. Và như vậy là ngay lập tức chúng tôi làm đơn kháng cáo. Ngày 7 tháng 5 2024 sẽ là cái ngày mà tòa xử phúc thẩm. Và như vậy đó là chúng tôi vẫn tiếp tục đi tới trong cái cuộc đấu tranh của mình. Mặc dù rằng hiện nay trong cái tình hình là càng người ta chỉ muốn tôi chết thôi, vì càng kéo dài thời gian thì thì là hễ tôi chết là cái vụ kiện này nó ngưng. Thì các bạn yên tâm, hai người phụ nữ này có già gì chăng nữa chúng tôi sẽ cùng với nhau đi tiếp cho đến cuối cùng. Dạ.
On the 11th of May 2021, the court in Avery said they actually don't have I don't know the precise legal term, they don't have the right to hear her case.
Like standing?
The standing, to hear the case, and she immediately appealed. So on the 7th of May of this year, the appeal will be heard in the higher court. And they're just waiting for me to die. But don't worry, Carol and I will go till the end. Is it okay if I privilege some questions from the audience, preferably to Carol?
Something that nobody in this country really understands is what's
do
going
you
on
wanna-
in the backseat.
I can answer.
You want to answer that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very briefly, what happened in Lincoln County, Oregon, where I live, was that the voters of Lincoln County passed a ballot measure, banning aerial spraying in our county by anybody. And
End of story, right?
no, it was unfortunately not the end of the story. As you know, lawyers get into the act. What occurred that we didn't know about was there is something maybe you've probably never heard of because we hadn't, called ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, which sounds totally bland, right? What it is it's a lobbying organization, so to speak, from mostly polluting and environmentally hazardous companies or industries, like fracking, like pesticides, that kind of thing that people object to with good reason. What they have done in every 50 states, ALEC has they write these laws, and then they basically pay through campaign contributions, whatever, they get the legislatures in these states to pass the laws that will preempt any local attempts to control what happens to the people. So any measures that a county or a city or any small, municipal body passes, the voters can pass something, but they'll be preempted by the state laws that ALEC has written, saying that they can't, like just recently they have passed laws, I think it was in Illinois, maybe it was Ohio, I can't remember. Okay, anyway, that people can't right, local laws that would ban chemicals on, being sprayed basically overhead. And that's happened in every 50 states, and because of that, in our case, the state law that was written by ALEC preempted our attempts to ban aerial spraying in our county. And there was basically nothing we could do about it. We took our appeals all the way up to the state Supreme Court, but they said that state law prevailed, so there it was. And that's what preemption means.
It comes down to the people not being able to protect themselves.
Right.
And this is perhaps the most basic civic challenge that America is facing environmentally. Can the local communities be empowered to push back against this coercive influence of money? And at the moment, we're in bad shape.
What does ALEC stand for?
American Legislative Exchange Council.
Okay. So can we have other questions?
Yeah. My question is for Nga. Chào cô Nga, cháu tên là Khanh và cháu đã theo dõi câu chuyện của cô cho 4 năm rồi và đã rất tôn trọng cô. Cảm ơn cô nhiều. Câu hỏi của cháu là sau đây, lịch sử của Việt Nam là một lịch sử đã trải qua rất nhiều khó khăn như thuộc địa của Pháp. Cháu muốn hỏi cô lịch sử này đã ảnh hưởng hoạt động của cô như thế nào và cô có lời khuyên gì cho tất cả thiên niên trong thế hệ của cháu đang muốn tạo ra sự change, như cô đã tạo ra.
Nếu mà con hỏi như thế đó thì cô nói như thế này: đất nước mình đang còn rất nhiều khó khăn, rất là nhiều người khổ. Thế thì là cô chỉ muốn là tuổi trẻ của mình ở bên này có điều kiện học cho giỏi, và vừa học cho giỏi nhưng mà vừa làm cho trái tim mình vẫn đượm cái tình yêu nước, yêu dân, và các con trở về để xây dựng lại cái đất nước của mình hiện nay đang không ổn. Cô dám nói cái điều đó, nói với lại tất cả những cái nỗi đau, là vì là cả đời cô là cho dân, cho nước. Thì bây giờ cô cũng sắp chết rồi, thì mấy đứa tiếp nối và thay cô để mà về xây dựng đất nước.
Yeah. So, Vietnam, I have to say, Vietnam today is actually still facing many, many difficulties and many people suffering. If you have the opportunity to be here, to please study hard, but keep your heart open to Vietnam and come back one day to build the country. It's with a very heavy heart that I have to say that Vietnam is not doing very well right now. My whole life's been dedicated to my country and my people, and so I hope you will too. Yeah, thanks.
Carol, do you want to pick up on young people?
Making changes?
Young people. Not just young people, all of us. I came from a time when it was improper and wrong and sinful to lie, and it seems like lying has just become so acceptable in these days. It's something we all just have to fight against and look for the truth where you can find it. Collect your data, always collect your data. You never know. I had a whole barn full of documents that ended up being used by lawyers, both in the Vietnam case, in the challenges against Monsanto by cities like San Diego, like Portland, like Seattle, for poisoning their waterways with PCBs. So you never know when that data is going to be important. Preserve it, preserve it, preserve it. And fight the lying, and don't trust anybody that can't produce their own data. I like to paraphrase Kipling, who wrote this after the First World War. He wrote a poem called Epitaph, and I just rewrote it. If any question why we died, tell them because Monsanto lied. So, that's my advice.
Hi. I just want to say thank you for the women that are sharing the stories, and I appreciate everyone being here. This is a question for Alan and Kate. Can you talk a little bit about your filmmaking process? I just thought it was fascinating to get this story of Madame and her story all across the world, and it connecting where it's a story about humanity, and it touches everyone on the earth. And so can you just tell us about a bit of your process in creating this documentary?
We're doing an after you
He started it 10
routine.
years ago, so he should begin.
I guess for me, the word that is most applicable to respond to your very challenging question is accretion. It was a very difficult film to make. It was the fourth documentary that Kate and I have struggled to make together. We're husband and wife, and it's really something to fight all day in the editing room and then go to bed together. And I thank goodness that we made it through that. Layer after layer, we tried to build an investigative case that would indict the chemical companies. We started out with Madame Tran, and we knew that she was individually taking on the chemical companies with her lawsuit, and that lawsuit could make history. Then we read about a woman in Oregon who was taking on the very same chemical companies.
And this is a timeline. This was 3 years into we met Madame Tran in 2015, and we found out about Carol in 2018, just to give you a sense of how much time goes into these things.
And we saw parallels because both of these courageous and heroic women had suffered enormous losses as mothers in the course of their struggle. And so the film became an opportunity to examine the effects of Agent Orange on both sides of the Vietnam-American War. And that was a unique concept and a unique privilege which we pursued as avidly as we possibly could. I hope that we succeeded. There are frustrations, limitations. I think I heard Kate tell someone earlier that we wanted to change the world with this film. And
We all want to change the world.
And I'm afraid I responded that we must have failed then, because the toxic agents are propagating still, and the opportunity to fight them seems to be waning. As Jonathan and Carol brought out, Madame Tran's case, which is pending final resolution, as I understand it, in the French court within a few weeks, all April and May, although perhaps Madame Tran can tell us if this will indeed be the last stage or not. But this coalition of the guilty in the courts is prevailing, and we do not have many opportunities to fight back. Jonathan made reference to this legal principle which both the French court in dismissing Madame Tran's case and Judge Weinstein in dismissing your case for the Vietnamese people both cited the right of a nation to fight wars without being held in judgment. And clearly, without the war in Vietnam, this damage would not have happened. We did not know until Carol Van Strum came forward and filed her case in Oregon. We did not know that the stupid American power structure and society had taken the initiative to bring this poison, surplus poison, back from Vietnam. We see in the film the endless ranks of barrels of drums full of the poison. And they brought it back here and empowered the timber industry in the Pacific Northwest to spread it everywhere, as that amazing Darrell Ivey, the helicopter guy in the film, says. We're going up to toxify everything. And he himself is going through this amazing arc of moral recognition. He starts out kind of skeptically, well, we're going up topside and toxify everything, and it's eating at him. And then eventually we see his own health deeply, deeply damaged by it. Can a film motivate a population? Can we do something about this?
That's what films are for, right? And in terms of the layering that you saw, that was very nice, insightful of you, seeing these different things that it started out as a kind of film about, Alan wanted to make a film just about Agent Orange, and I thought, you can't make a film about just Agent Orange. You have to have people affected by it so that you bring your audience in. So I got involved 5 years in, after the initial research. And I wanted to make visual metaphors so that everybody would know, even viscerally, while you're watching it. I don't know if you caught it. Here we are on a rainy night, and there was so much rain and water and rivers, and you get a sense that it's pervasive. It's in the water. It's coming down. I just wanted that as a kind of visual thread that goes through the whole film, so you see how important the issue is and how it's touching all of us. So I like that kind of thing. So you might not be aware of it when you're watching it, but Now that I told you, I gave it away.
Can I just add that I think that it's important to realize you can't give up hope here, that there's still a struggle you can wage around this issue. There's a fundamental issue of equality and fairness here, and we don't begrudge the veterans who fought in the war being covered by Agent Orange, but the government, our government has paid billions of dollars, probably in the range of $30 to $40 billion over the last 15 years, to veterans who claim illnesses related to their exposure to Agent Orange. And it's a very forgiving standard. All you have to do now is basically say, I was in the area where they were spraying. There's a whole host of new diseases that are covered, and numbers almost 30 now. And at the same time, the government says, but it didn't cause any harm to the Vietnamese. And the reason they can get around that is the government has immunity. You can't sue the king, right? Sovereign immunity. So we couldn't sue the government. We had to sue the chemical companies. And they simply said, well, we're doing what the government said. They nationalized our industry. So it was being caught between a rock and a hard place. But we continue to advocate for it. As I said, VAORC, V-A-O-R-R-C, which is Vietnam Agent Orange Relief and Responsibility Campaign, and you can look at our website at info@vn-agentorange.org. That's info@vn-agentorange.org to find out more about it. And so we continue to believe that we will prevail on this issue eventually. We may all not be here to see it, but there are enough people who are motivated by this issue to keep working on it. And so I urge you all to get involved, especially the young people, because it's a fundamental principle of international law that you can't poison a population. You can't use chemical warfare. We thought that was decided years ago after World War I. And the fact that they're still getting away with it is just a horrible crime.
And Madam Chen also wants to add very quickly, first of all, that the May judgment will not be the end. If they don't want to hear the case, she'll bring it to a higher court and all the way to the top, as you have with the U.S. Supreme Court. And we'll keep fighting. Also, when I first came onto the film, it was originally called Madam Chen's Last Fight. You remember? Yeah. And then we were just so glad to have that multiple perspective with you, Carol. Okay,
I have a question. On a legal level, was the unsuccessful case of the downwinders in Idaho after the experiments during the war for the atomic explosions. These people and their sheep had years and years of cancers. And it's still going on. Did that influence or impact your case in any way?
June 7th cutoff date for continuing for the New Mexicans who haven't received, 50 states were involved, but June 7th, the Speaker of the House is to bring it to the floor for a vote, or it goes nowhere.
Speaker of the House.
Yes. Good luck.
All right, we're already running quite a lot over time. I know my team really wants to go. Okay, maybe we'll accommodate one last question, but it's very short, if that's all right.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much for your moral courage and your determination. I remember when the Agent Orange suit was being argued by Vietnam veterans in the 70s and how difficult it was for us to persuade people what was going on. They were totally indifferent. And what strikes me in listening to all the powerful stories that have been said here is, what about now with global climate change? With all the different issues of multinational globalization corporations doing other things beyond Agent Orange. It just is mind-boggling to think about that. And I want to thank you for your moral courage, because that is what clearly one gets from this. And I just remember all the friends of mine who died and lost their loved ones in the 70s because we were trying to understand what the hell was happening. And the government, that Weinstein individual, I remember vividly that lawsuit. And I don't want to use the language I'd like to use right now, but it just the indifference of the society to this is what still strikes me and boggles the mind. Boggles the mind.
So is that a question or it's not? Okay. So I think thank you. Yeah. So so I forgot to introduce you. You're also a Vietnam veteran. That's right. And or yeah. In the fight. Anyway, so just I think it's probably time for us to close. Thank you so much for having stayed all the way till the end. It's a unique pleasure to have my wonderful panelists who have really made their way, from across the country, from across the oceans, having to reject other speaking engagements when in order to be here with us, as Madam Nga is. So we're incredibly grateful, and thank you all for coming and staying. And please keep engaged. Please keep, please don't lose hope. Be clear about the situation. Don't lose hope, and always collect your documents. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, everyone.